Bonjour and welcome to another episode of The Energy. And for this episode, I want to go, do another reading of one of my stories. I titled it Alias. Chapter 1. I love making. Every city runs on two economies, the one you can major in and the one you can only survive. Macon has both. A respectable university brochure with brick quads and honor codes, and a neon light syllabus you only learn by getting burned. Dany Kenway sits between them like a hinge. By day, he's a grad student in criminal justice, policy briefs, court transcripts, seminar debates about whether corruption is a disease or a design feature. By night, he's the quiet problem solver for Tempest, the gaudiest club within the stumbling distance of the University of Macon. He didn't apply for the job. He just kept showing up, fixing what other people broke, and someone started paying him before anyone could stop him. Mike Cord, nightclub monarch of a crumbling kingdom, the kind of man who can charm a fire marshal then immediately misplace the plummet. He loves people the way a gambler loves a hot streak. Mustafa Zane, heir to oil tech and an attention span with a jet engine. His hobbies include collecting helicopters, ideas, and near arrest. He believes rules are suggestions and gravity is a social construct. Sammy Owens, a businessman in the way a shark is a swimmer. He doesn't shout, he invoices. He thinks loyalty is a payment plan with better adjectives. And Denny, who once wrote, "Don't become the job on a bar napkin and now becomes the napkin in his pocket like a relic." He owes people homework and he owes other people explanations, and he's run out of both. The university is in its own city. Student senators playing at power, admin lifers flowing in budget shortfalls, campus cops who practice the choreography of authority. The campus scene bleeds into all of it. The internships share sidewalks with after hours, ethics to 501s, and $5 from a champagne parade. You can get extra credit for volunteering and extra danger for standing next to the wrong VIP. The night Macon decided Dany Kenway was more a bouncer than grad student began with an email about a midterm rubric and ended with a flag gun lighting up a velvet rope VIP like a birthday cake. At 8:17 p.m., Danny was still in the University of Macon Law Library, reformatting citations for his public corruption case study. His phone pulsed on silent. Mike, missed calls, Mike, 8 texts, Mike, one voicemail that was just bass yelling and a sound like a glass chandelier crying. He packed up and jogged past the quad, where student orgs were tabling with the bio-grade glow sticks, and cut across to the back alley that serves as Tempest's service entrance. The club glowed radioactive fuchsia. The sidewalk humid with spilled champagne in summer. Inside was a comic panel come to life. Dentist on chrome risers, fall cans belching out weather systems, a DJ in an LED tuxedo. Mike Cord, owner, legend, disaster leaned over the second floor balcony with the wide-eyed charm of men who owe the wrong people the right amount of money. "Denny, sweetie," he sung, "what would I even do without your sturdy little conscience?" "What's on fire?" Daddy asked. "Everything." Mike pointed out, pointing. "And also the ice." A rival promoter, Wayne Hayes, whose business model was weaponized influencers, had slipped a team up onto the floor to sabotage the night. The plan? Sweep Tempest signature sparklers for smoke bombs and hijack bottle servers with a fake safety inspection. When inspectors pushed past security toward the VIP, they found Danny waiting. Khaki swat for black jeans, a grad student bag traded for a radio and a gun. The fight was less ballistic and more slapstick. Champagne buckets skidded across, sweeted under the feet of an inspector. A confetti cannon went off at the hip level, and a sparkler that refused to die turned the brawl into a 4th of July pageant. He didn't indicate this balanced way he kept his grades stubbornly against common sense. He pawned up Bouncer's earpiece. So exits A and C. Keep D open for cops and ambulances, but tell them they'll be lonely. Wayne tried to slip upstairs to Mike's office and found the staircase blocked by 2 drag queens and 7-inch heels who were not on his payroll. He tried to buy him. They laughed and then lifted him by the elbows like a misbehaving toddler, delivering him to Danny, who made him return the stolen wristbands and apologize to the bottle girls. When the DJ dropped the track back in, the room resynced. Mike, mascara slightly smudged from exertion, kissed Danny on both cheeks. "I knew grad school would teach you conflict resolution." "It taught me how to read contracts," Danny said. "Yours are complete nightmares." Mike's smile flickered. The debts were getting louder. Outside, across the street, a long black SUV idled. Danny clocked the plates and the silhouette in the driver's seat. Samuel and his people. "Not tonight, but soon." At 2:41 a.m., Fire inspector finally arrived, the real one. Tempest passed by a hair. Mike sagged in his velvet chair, relief melting him. You're saving my life, baby. Just the club, Dany said. Your life's on you. He walked back to the campus under sodium orange streetlights, past flyers for ethics lectures and meditation circles. His phone buzzed again. Tomorrow, noon. Break your helmet. The name attached had a golden crown and a falcon emoji. Mustafa. Chapter 2. French Takeout. Mustafa Zayn believed money was a trampoline. The point wasn't to stand on it, it was to see how high it would launch you. He welcomed Danny to his riverfoot hangar wearing silk loungewear printed with tiny helicopters and the phrase, yes, and in gold foil. Behind him, a chopper that looked like a nightclub with blades. Under it, a crate labeled Skytron clamp and a weapons case that was alarmingly glittered. I hear the city's new Macon glide is expensive, Mustafa said. So I bought the maintenance schematics on Etsy. Etsy doesn't sell that, Danny said. It does if you ask nicely. Mustafa patted the crate. We're borrowing a gondola. We put it back. Eventually. The plan lit the gondola car off the morning test line, hauled it to Mustafa's rooftop to be reborn as a VIP lounge, then returned it for the mayor's photo op at desk. Straightforward, except for the gravity, law, and human dignity. Up on the chopper, Danny strapped in, the sea sliding below like a neon circuit board. You sure the clamp can handle the weight? Absolutely, Mustafa said, then added, probably. Then kissed a prayer bead. The grab went almost smooth. The clamp found touches, the cable sung, and the gondola car lifted from its rails like a soap bubble. Then two things happened. A pair of Macon glide security vehicles began a polite but persistent pursuit. An arrival crew, Matt Grayson's meathead entourage, appeared on a nearby rooftop, waving protein shakes in a rocket launcher like it was an aerobics accessory. Why do they have that? Danny asked. Because I bragged about this plan on the podcast, Mustafa added, staring evasively. Well, you see, in my defense, the podcast is called Criminally Vain. A firework of rocket roof pads bursting into a shower of gold sparks. Matt had bought the festive ammunition. Danny unlatched the side door and clamped a harness to the rail. Keep it steady. Keep it steady. I'm going to talk to them. He rappelled to the gondola, boots skidding across the smooth fiberglass. The city roared beneath, cars like ants, the rover like a plane of blue glass. As another rocket arched, Danny yanked the flag gun from his belt and popped a bright star right in front of Matt's face. The bodyguards flinched. Mustafa banked. The gondola swung out over the water. Gentlemen, Danny shouted across the gap. Return that to whatever bachelor party you stole it from. Matt raised his neck like it had a throttle. Get your pretty little bubble back on the wire, Ned. Rude, Mustafa muttered, then leaned on the horn which unhelpfully played an EDM drop. Danny steadied himself, took aim, and fired a second flare at Matt's launcher. The flare lodged a foam finger strapped to the barrel, igniting it into a whoopee cushion of flaming embarrassment. The rocket misfired, blooming into harmless glitter. The rooftop posse drove for cover, howling. They delivered the gondola to Mustafa's rooftop oasis, a plaza of gold lounges and actual peacocks. Mustafa insisted they were rescue peacocks. His contractors swarmed the car, decking it out with leather banquets and backlit champagne wells. By late afternoon, the gondola, now rechristened the Skyrift, was airborne again. It tilted back before the mayor's ribbon cutting by exactly 7 minutes. Then he tightened the clamp until it clicked home like a seatbelt. The ceremony went on without a hitch, the mayor beaming over innovative public-private synergy. Mustafa was smirking from 3 rooftops away, and Danny already checked his email. Professor Kramer reminder, midterm opens at 7 p.m. No extension. Mustafa clapped his shoulder. You're a natural. I like you in the air. You look like a coin tossed up for luck. I'm trying not to end wrong, Danny said. His phone vibrated with a new message, an address, a time, Owens. The ground rushed back in. Chapter 3, Blood, Midterms, and Bottle Service. Owens' men chose the worst possible night to talk. The first night of the midterm window, Danny set his campus issue laptop on Tony's desk, stacked between receipts and the framed photo of Tony. Danny set his campus issue laptop on Mike's desk, stacked between receipts and the framed photo of Mike shaking hands with the pop star who later the night on him, and opened the test. Timer, 2 hours, 59 minutes, 59 seconds. 3 hours, Danny said. We can fix a life in 3 hours. Mike smiled weakly. Baby, if I could fix a life in 3 hours, I'd be a therapist with better shoes. Sammy Owens' right-hand man Jackson arrived with a patient grin of a dentist who did house calls with pliers. Our friend owes, we are flexible. Flexible like necks. Flexible like payment plans? Danny said. Interest frozen for 90 days, provided Tempest remains operational and you don't scare the fire marshal again. Jackson blinked. He was expecting the tables to be turned. And if some of your clients' assets underperform, then you're personally to take the carpet, Mike said, gesturing broadly at a floor that was not, strictly speaking, carpeted. The negotiation had three tracks: the money, the pride, and the clock on Danny's midterm. He alternated between explaining what the club had value and answering public policy questions about procurement fraud. The questions were clear, the criminals were not. Halfway through, Owens himself strode in, clung first. He smelled like an elevator mirror. Kid, you're the one who made my boys apologize last night. They were trespassing, Danny said. On a technicality called, law? Owens liked that. He liked himself and Danny. You run this place? Studies corruption and practice risk mitigation, Mike offered. So he's my conscience with biceps. Shame about the conscience part. Owens added. It costs. And he named a number that sounded like a real estate listing. Start there. Danny did the math out loud because Jackson respected numbers and Owens respected confidence. Well, if we start there, Tempest dies. Then you own a very fancy tune. Start here, Lord never better schedule. Then you own a river. A beat. Owens just laughed and clapped. You got a mouth. Keep it. But miss a payment, and I'll rent it out. They shook on a plan that bled but didn't asphyxiate. Owens left a parting gift to his men at the bar for security, which meant a visible reminder that nothing was really settled. The time on Denny's exam ticked down to 23 minutes. He sprinted to the back office, wrote 3 essays with the force of a man out running a helicopter blade, and submitted it with 1 second left, a heart jackhammering. The confirmation screen popped like confetti. He exhaled. Then he heard shouting over the base. Matt Grayson had it, returned with a posse and a literal clipboard. Health Department, the badge read, if you believe, clip art. Jackson's boy squared up. Mike went pale. Then he stepped between all three over-the disasters. You, he pointed at Matt, have a fake badge. You, to Owens' men, don't start a war at my bar. And you, to Mike, breathe. He climbed onto the bar and held up a mic. Ladies and gentlemen and people who only love me for my drink specials, he boomed. The health department is here to inspect our vibes. Please make room for bureaucracy. The crowd laughed, parted. Then he beckoned the inspectors to walk in cooler where 2 actual city officers who had been invited for a scheduled check were waiting with crossed arms and very real clipboards. Matt's face did math. It didn't compute. The officers took statements, the imposters took the exit. At 2 a.m., the room pulsated with relief. Mike took Danny, then immediately took a shot he did not need. You're a star, he whispered in Danny's ear. I'm a collapsing one, Danny said back. Outside, the black SUV was closer. Owens waved cheerfully from the back seat as he was dropping a nephew at prom. Chapter 4. Corny Kids. The deck calendar was a meat grinder. To make the first new payment, Danny needed a score. Mustafa, patron saint of legal gray, offered one. A crash transfer run on the Macon Metro, unmarked bills moving from a downtown armory to a bank vault under the stadium. The train would be lightly guarded. The quotes were Mustafa's. They planned it in the hangar with whiteboards and a reasonable amount of cheese and crackers. We don't stop the train, Danny said, sketching. We edit it. We take car 3, leave a car 3-shaped apology, never keeps moving. How do we edit steel? Mike asked, showing his thumbnail in a truffle fry. Magnets, Mustafa said, reverent. He put the lid on the case. Industrial electromagnet, hockey puck thick with warning labels that read like dash. Next to them, a set of shaped charges that sparked faintly. Mustafa's stuttered glittered trademark explosives. From around, he said. The night of, Danny wore black and calm. The helicopter hummed above the rail yard. Below, the train rolled like a silver spine. Danny dropped with a harness onto car 3. Suction cups clinging. He crawled to the scene, planted the magnet, wired the charges, and breathed with the rhythm of the rails. A guard stepped out onto the coupling and saw a shadow where no shadow should be. Hey! He shouted, leveling the pistol. Then his hand moved before his fear did. He flung a flash pellet the size of a marble. It burst into a white curtain. The guard staggered. Then he slid, clipped, kicked him gently into a sit, zip-tied him into the safety rail, and apologized. You and your rules, he said out of habit. At the river tunnel on Denny's Go, Mustafa pulsed the electromagnets. The couplings surrendered with a kiss of sparks. Car 3 sighed free, and Mustafa's helicopter took the weight, the cable singing. Then Matthew McGrayson, convinced the universe was his gem, roared up alongside the train in an armored pickup, driving on the maintenance road along inside the tunnel. He climbed onto the hood, shirt off because of course, and let for Denny's car as it lifted. They met at the lip. Denny crouched, Max flexing at gravity. Bro, Matt balked. Do you even heist? Not with you, Denny said, and headbutted him cleanly. Matt fell backward onto his own hood, bounced, rolled, and credit where due, landed in a spear stance, screaming back promises of calisthenic revenge. Above, the helicopter lugged the car out of the tunnel, the city yawning open in neon. Sirens ghost in the distance. Danny cut through the roof of the rescue saw. Inside, neat plastic bricks of cash waited like choir boys. He tossed bags to the hook, clapped others to his highness, and it felt less like stealing and more like redistribution to the unsustainably glamorous. They delivered the goods to Ollens's drop with time to spare and possible deniability to burn. Card 3, empty and slightly bedazzled with by unintended glitter, returned to the rail a mile down line with a thunk, recoupled to a perfectly baffled train. Danny tested Mike, made payment, no injuries, just glitter. Mike replied with 47 heart emojis and a selfie caption, my hero, where he looked like he hadn't slept in 36 hours. Probably had. Back at Tempest, Danny scrubbed train dust off his hands and watched Mike dance with relief. The DJ cut the lights except for one aquamarine beam on the owner, who for a rare minute looked weightless. The minute ended when Jackson raised a glass from the balcony and the toast was really a countdown. Chapter 5. Clocking out. The array wasn't an array until the lights went white. Before that, it was rumors and the nervous way bartenders stacked glassware. Then a flood of blue wine records rolled through the front like a winter. Then he put his hands on the bar and spoke to the room like a teacher announcing a fire drill. Ladies and gents, please keep your IDs out and your dignity in. We're going to be respectful, quiet, and boring. Mike, to his credit, didn't run. He stood behind Danny with a smile he practiced in mirrors for decades. But the cops weren't here for a pageant. They were here for product. Someone had seated the VIP with pills in monogram vials engraved PM. Jackson's man. Then he thought, or maybe pay me? A young officer rifled through a bouquet and held up a vial. Cameras flashed, Danny's stomach dropped. That's not ours, Mike whispered. Too loud, too late. Danny moved. He pounded the vial, handed it to the officer properly, requested the club's counsel be present for any official statements. He guided the staff to shut down the lights in sections, protect tips, and keep exits clear. He offered the lead detective a car, room, and coffee. He did everything right, and himself like Johnny in a well-lit pool. In the back alleyway, Matthew McGrayson, ever the opportunist, snapped forward for a story about corruption. Jackson watched with a priest's patience. Owens arrived, then did not enter, which was worse. He just called. That night, he purred. I can help if your boss's name is a price he should have named months ago. What price? Danny asked, though he knew. Ownership, Owens added. 51. Protection, stability, sleep. Danny found Mike in his office, shaking hands over a crystal decanter he didn't need. I am not losing my name, Mike said. Not to him. Definitely not like this. Do you need to be boring? Danny said. For 6 months, no powders, no pills, no parties with people who use words I own as foreplay. Mike laughed and then cried in the same breath. You'll stay? Loyalty's not a word I use lately, Danny said. But it's the one I've got. He turned the office into a command center, body chemical sync signs at every door, staff statements, inventory logs. When the detectives left at 3:12 a.m., they had a club that looked bruised but compliant. They also had a rumor heavily pushed by Matt that Danny had cleaned the place too well. By dawn, a motor was found floating near the Macon River locks with its clipper still attached to his belt. It wasn't Matt, though it should have been. The city whispered, did the grad student do it? The cops eyed Danny with special curiosity reserved for people who seemed too competent to be innocent. Mike squeezed Danny's forearm. We won, right? We survived, Danny said. Waiting for people with savings accounts. Outside, this SUV idled again. Owens waved. He had all the time in the world. Chapter 5. Clocking out. At 5:40 a.m., campus sprinklers misted the humanities squad like it was a spot for ghosts. Danny sat on a bench facing the law building, his laptop open to an army announcement. Midterm grades posted. It didn't click. He watched the long shadows shrink and thought about the shapes of cages. Some were bars, some were contracts, some were nightclubs with perfect sound systems. His phone buzzed. Mustafa. Got a line on the something shinier than a gondola. Call me. Mike. Brunch or do we sleep? Owens. No text, no photo. No text, but a photo. The photo was a tempest from across the river. Night mode sharpening the neon into knives. Caption, beautiful. Would be a shame. Then he closed the laptop and stood. Could almost hear the city breathing, big and spoiled and hungry. He checked his pockets, keys, wallet, a folded napkin on which he once scribbled, "Don't become the job." He slid it back in. He started toward Tempest, towards Mustafa's madness and Mike's mess and Owens' smile. Someone behind him, the first class of the day, filed into Ethics 501, taking notes on utilitarianism while the city ran on hedonism with better PR. He didn't know if this was winning or just a slower kind of losing. He only knew he wasn't done. And with that, that concludes the story. And as well as this episode. And I will see you on the next episode where I will be doing another character analysis.